If you've been online lately, you've probably seen the chaos Nicki Minaj and SZA locked in one of the wildest feuds hip-hop has ever seen. But this wasn't just petty tweets. We're talking old receipts, resurfacing, FBI tags, hidden, industry drama, and even Beyoncé and Drake's names being dragged into the mess. What started with a simple Mercury retrograde post spiraled into a cultural explosion that shook the entire music industry. So how did a harmless tweet turn into the most chaotic feud of 2025? Let's break it all down. If you've been scrolling the internet lately, chances are this drama has already caught your eye. Nicki Minaj and SZA have found themselves at the center of one of the most chaotic feuds we've seen in a long time. And just when people thought it couldn't get any crazier, new footage has surfaced, showing their clash reaching an entirely new level.
Yesterday, SZA entered the chat again in this Nicki Minaj back and forth, and she dropped text messages from Nicki Minaj, and she says that these text messages will show that Nicki absolutely does know her music and what she contributes, because Nicki Minaj asked for features twice to no response, in addition to rapping my lyrics on Feeling Myself.
But that was only the beginning. What followed was a storm of old demons resurfacing, whispers of FBI investigations, and layers of hidden drama that had been buried for years. The real ignition point came on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday, in the summer of 2025, when Nicki Minaj decided to shake the hip-hop world to its core. Instead of trading shots with her usual rivals like Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion, she stunned everyone by turning her attention toward Terrence "Punch" Henderson, the president of Top Dog Entertainment. For those unfamiliar, Punch isn't just another executive sitting in the background. He's the mastermind who helped shape TDE into one of the most influential forces in music. Nicki's decision to call him out didn't just ruffle feathers, it disrupted the entire balance of the industry. Punch has been one of the driving forces behind TDE's rise into the powerhouse it is today, guiding careers of legends like Kendrick Lamar, Schoolboy Q, and of course, SZA. On that fateful Tuesday at exactly 12:35 p.m. EDT, he posted what looked like a harmless tweet, just a bit of promo for a new track called Broken Barbies by an artist named I Am Lyric. What seemed routine at first would soon spiral into one of the most chaotic industry moments in years. Just 4 hours later, at 4:21 p.m., Nicki Minaj flipped the internet upside down with a single post aimed straight at Punch. LOL. Y'all remember that man from TDE who kept bullying me on Twitter for no reason? We have the receipts. LOL. I never even responded to him. What was his name again, y'all? I'm going to give him a nickname. I'ma call him -30 million from now on. #Justice for Dick. The tweet left fans and industry insiders equally stunned. Why was Nicki suddenly targeting Punch? What were these so-called receipts? And what in the world did Broken Barbies have to do with any of this? According to Nicki, Punch's tweet wasn't innocent at all. She took it as a direct jab at her fan base, the Barbs, who are often tied to Barbie-inspired imagery. But in Nicki's version of events, this wasn't about one post. She claimed it was the culmination of years of alleged bullying and behind-the-scenes sabotage after she rejected Punch's business proposals. The internet was already in a frenzy, but what came next pushed everything into overdrive. Enter SZA, completely unaware that she was about to be dragged into a feud she never signed up for. At 3:20 p.m. EDT, on July 15, 2025, she tweeted something that, on the surface, felt lighthearted and very on-brand for her. Mercury retrograde, don't take the bait lol. Silly goose. For longtime fans, this was classic SZA, her usual mix of mystical, astrological musings about energy, vibes, and cosmic shifts. But Nicki didn't see it that way. To her, the timing was too perfect, too pointed. She read the tweet as a slick subliminal. And that's when the sparks really began to fly. Barely an hour after Nicki's explosive rant at Punch, she decided that SZA's lighthearted astrology post was actually a thinly veiled subtweet aimed at her. The fact that SZA quickly clarified, explaining that her tweet had nothing to do with Nicki or TDE and was simply her reflecting on Mercury retrograde after stepping off stage, didn't matter. As SZA herself put it, I wasn't even talking about or to anyone. But you know how it is when someone's already in their feelings. Logic, however, had already left the chat. Nicki's response was sharp and merciless. She fired off a post at SZA that read, "Go draw your freckles back on Bookie." Hashtag Justice Fortemurray. Hashtag Deposition Perez. Liar liar pants on fire. Sounding like a FKN dead dog. The internet erupted in disbelief. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Fans couldn't decide if they were watching an industry feud or an elementary school recess argument. And just when people thought Nicki had gone too far, it became clear she was only warming up. Nicki's insults only grew harsher, with one jab comparing SZA's look and voice to someone who'd just been stung by a bee. The disrespect was loud and clear, and SZA wasn't about to let it slide. While she's often seen as a calm, spiritual R&B goddess, SZA has no problem standing her ground when pushed. Her first response was restrained but cutting. "I don't give a expletive about none of that weird stuff you popping." But as Nicki's attacks kept stacking up, SZA decided enough was enough. It was time to fire back with receipts. And what she revealed shifted the entire conversation. Screenshots from 2020 surfaced, showing that Nicki Minaj had actually reached out to her not once, but twice, asking to collaborate. The revelation turned the tables completely, with media outlets like The Breakfast Club jumping on the story. As reporter Lauren LaRosa explained, those messages painted a very different picture than the one Nicki was trying to sell. The leaked screenshots painted a very different story than Nicki's narrative. The messages showed Nicki's team reaching out professionally. "Hey, it's Nicki," followed by requests to have SZA on the hook for a track she was recording. SZA's reply was respectful but firm. She was deep in album mode, fully locked in on what would later become her critically acclaimed project, SOS. But the real mic drop moment came when SZA added context that cut even deeper. She reminded everyone that she already had a history with Nicki, holding co-writing credits on Feeling Myself, Nicki's Arling E. Sick collaboration with Beyoncé, specifically penning the now iconic line, "Cooking up the bass, looking like a kilo." Her full clapback read, "Nicki, you absolutely know my music and what I contribute, 'cause you've asked for features twice with no response. In addition to rapping my lyrics on Feeling Myself, cooking up the bass, looking like a kilo, LOL, we are having a moment. I'm not sure why, but be blessed." The internet went wild. Suddenly, the feud wasn't just messy, it was historical. With receipts in hand, SZA had flipped the script and left fans questioning Nicki's entire version of events. The screenshots left no room for doubt. Nicki not only knew exactly who SZA was, but she had actively pursued her for collaborations on 2 separate occasions. This completely dismantled Nicki's attempt to frame SZA as irrelevant or unknown. Even TDE President Terrence "Punch" Henderson later confirmed the story in an interview with journalist Lauren LaRosa on The Breakfast Club. He revealed that, back in 2020, Nicki had personally reached out about securing a feature from SZA, but at the time, SZA was fully immersed in creating what would eventually become her Grammy-winning album, SOS, and simply couldn't take on additional projects. The revelation added another layer of credibility to SZA's receipts and further undermined Nicki's narrative.
Message reads, as we mentioned in the convo yesterday, she says, "Hey, it's Nicki," and they respond, "Minaj," and she says, "Yes, how are you?" Or, "How are you? I'm good, money, what's poppin', congrats on order." So then she goes right to, "It says a recording right now, I got this hook, I think she would be dope."
The revelation of those 2020 text messages flipped the entire narrative on its head. What began with Nicki painting SZA as irrelevant quickly unraveled into what looked more like bitterness over a politely declined collaboration. The fact that SZA turned down Nicki's requests, not out of shade, but because she was locked in creating SOS, an album that would go on to define the decade in R&B, made Nicki's attacks appear even more petty in the eyes of fans. By the end of July 15th, it was clear this was no longer just a Twitter spat sparked by an innocent Mercury retrograde post. This feud was exposing the hidden fault lines of the music industry: rejection, ego, label rivalries, and the politics that fuel hip-hop and R&B behind closed doors. And here's the wild part: that was just day one. If people thought the receipts and chaos from July 15th were messy, the next chapter was about to be nuclear. Nicki wasn't just angry, she felt disrespected. And when that happens, nobody is safe. Not Drake, not Beyoncé, not anyone tied to TDE. Most assumed cooler heads would prevail after the first round of tweets and receipts. Maybe both women would step back, let things breathe, and move on. But those people clearly didn't know Nicki Minaj on July 16th and 17th. While SZA was focused on selling out stadiums across Europe with Kendrick Lamar on their Grand National Tour, Nicki was doubling down. The leaked messages had struck a nerve, and instead of backing off, she decided to escalate. The first major explosion came when Nicki's next move took the feud to an even harsher level. She openly questioned SZA's entire career, posting, "Wait, does SZA think she's more successful than me? Lol, y'all catch me up. Plus, SZA, if every song you've ever done vanished right now, the music business wouldn't even miss you. I've been to countries that never heard of you." The statement was shocking for several reasons. For one, SZA's had shattered records, becoming the longest charting top 10 album by a black artist on the Billboard 200s, surpassing even Michael Jackson's Thriller. On top of that, SZA was co-headlining one of the biggest tours of 2025, with Kendrick Lamar, packing stadiums worldwide. Still, Nicki doubled down, determined to dismiss her success. To escalate further, Nicki dug into SZA's past, resurfacing decade-old tweets from 2011 where a then-unknown SZA had made critical comments about Beyoncé, Rihanna, and Kiara. Though these tweets came from her early days, long before fame, Nicki framed them as proof that SZA had always been jealous of successful women. Writing, "Do you know the level of inside hate for yourself? You'd need to be this bitter toward women you later worked with?" But fans saw it differently. Bringing up tweets from over a decade ago felt desperate, especially since SZA had gone on to collaborate with many of those same women, showing clear growth both as an artist and a person. Yet Nicki still wasn't finished. On July 17, 2025, she pulled Drake into the chaos, claiming she was his original pick for the 2023 hit Rich Baby Daddy, the track that eventually featured SZA and Sexy Red. Nicki tweeted, "I wonder if she knows I turned down being on that Shake That for Drake's song. He wanted me and Sexy on it. I said I wanted to wait for Pink Friday too for me and him to do a Drakey song so it felt more." Nicki then crossed into even more controversial territory, taking her comments to a crude and unnecessary level. She tweeted, "And now that silly goose still out here shaking that for Drake every day after swallowing his balls allegedly." The jab was an obvious reference to SZA and Drake's brief romance back in 2009. When SZA was 19 and Drake was 22, SZA has always described that relationship as lighthearted, innocent, and far from anything scandalous. But Nicki's framing suggested something far more recent and inappropriate. A move that many fans felt was wildly out of bounds. And she didn't stop there. Nicki also dragged Beyoncé into the mix, claiming both she and Queen Bey had taken issue with SZA's songwriting contributions to their 2014 track, Feeling Myself. Nicki recounted a supposed phone exchange where neither she nor Beyoncé wanted to sing SZA's lyric, turning what SZA had proudly highlighted as proof of her influence into something petty and dismissive. Even more suspicious, Nicki's original post had mentioned both Beyoncé and Rihanna, but she quickly edited it to replace Beyoncé's name, with Ciara sparking speculation that she was afraid of backlash from the notoriously protective Bey. Through it all, SZA's approach stood in stark contrast. Rather than trading insults, she addressed the bigger picture, tweeting about the harassment she endured daily online compared to the genuine love she received in packed stadiums on her sold-out European tours with Kendrick Lamar. "I get bullied by millions online every day. Then step out on a packed stadium tour where people show me real love in real life." The message hit hard, drawing a sharp contrast between online chaos and tangible success. Finally, she signaled she was done feeding into the drama. "Lol, let me go back to being calm, shy, and meek. Y'all have a blessed night. See you tomorrow for night 2 in Paris." Her choice of words didn't go unnoticed. Fans immediately speculated that the word meek was a subtle dig at Nicki's infamous history with rapper Meek Mill. Fans and industry insiders alike began to recognize just how far things had spiraled. Many saw Nicki's attacks as unnecessarily cruel, especially considering SZA hadn't actually done anything to provoke them. Her original Mercury retrograde tweet was harmless, and her decision not to respond to Nicki's 2020 collaboration requests made perfect sense. SZA was in the middle of crafting SOS, an album that would become a cultural landmark. SZA's fanbase rallied behind her, defending her from what they viewed as unfair and relentless targeting. Even veteran voices in hip-hop media couldn't make sense of it. As one radio personality put it, "Listen, some people complain about everything, but never tolerate a single complaint about themselves. I don't even know if these complaints from Nicki are valid, because I still don't know what the hell is going on." When respected commentators openly questioned Nicki's behavior, it underscored just how poorly her tactics were being received in the industry. What made this feud even messier was the web of rivalries it exposed. Nicki's attacks on SZA weren't happening in a vacuum. They were entangled with her long-standing issues with TDE and its president, Punch Henderson. The drama deepened further with the fact that TDE is also home to Kendrick Lamar, who had been locked in his own headline-grabbing feud with Drake, one of Nicki's closest allies. By mocking SZA's tour with Kendrick, Nicki wasn't just firing at one artist, she was poking at an entire network of relationships, rivalries, and fragile alliances within hip-hop. Nicki's frustration took an even sharper edge when she mocked SZA's tour with Kendrick Lamar, asking if it was the H*E tour or her bro tour. That jab revealed just how deeply the Drake-Kendrick rivalry was shaping. Nicki's perspective on SZA wasn't just about her as an artist, it was about her association with a camp Nicki considered opposition. But it wasn't only Nicki driving the escalation. Her fanbase, the Barbs, played a massive role in amplifying the chaos. Their coordinated attacks flooded SZA's mentions, spreading harassment, doxing attempts, and online abuse, making SZA's statement about being bullied by millions online feel chillingly literal. What should have been a celebrity feud spiraled into a case study in the darker side of stan culture, how online loyalty can quickly morph into mob behavior. By July 17th, it looked like things might finally cool down. SZA publicly chose peace, focusing on her sold-out European tour, while Nicki had already aired her grievances. But just as the drama seemed ready to fade, a new player jumped into the fray and, this time, it wasn't another artist, but a TDE affiliate. His offhand remark would flip the feud on its head, dragging law enforcement, a Florida congresswoman, and even the FBI into what had started as a Twitter spat. On July 18, 2025, during a live-stream TDE affiliate, Makwap casually told Nicki, "Relax, or you'll get put in the blender, like your boy." For hip-hop heads, the meaning was clear. It was a reference to Drake, and put in a blender is slang for getting lyrically shredded. Just as Kendrick had obliterated Drake in 2024 with Not Like Us. But Nicki didn't take it as a metaphor. To her, this wasn't battle rap, talk it was a direct threat. In a move that stunned the hip-hop world, Nicki reposted the clip to X, tagging both the FBI and Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, accusing Makwap of issuing a violent threat against her. Her final major statement on the matter was both graceful and pointed. "I get bullied by millions online every day. Then step out on a packed stadium tour where people show me nothing but love. That's where my focus is. That's what matters." It was the perfect contrast. While Nicki was pulling the FBI and a sitting congresswoman into a hip-hop feud, Shaw was selling out arenas and basking in the real-world support of fans who showed up for her music. The optics couldn't have been clearer. One artist seemed consumed by paranoia and online drama, while the other was thriving despite it. But Nicki's decision to tag the FBI and Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna wasn't something the culture could just laugh off. It struck at the heart of an unwritten rule in hip-hop: you don't bring in the feds. For decades, the genre has thrived on lyrical sparring, coded threats, and larger-than-life bravado, all without crossing into legal territory. By escalating Makwap's comment into a federal case, Nicki had effectively rewritten the rules, and the backlash was immediate. Commentators compared it to calling the cops on a freestyle, with many industry voices warning that this move could set a dangerous precedent where rap talk is treated as criminal evidence. Even more jarring was Nicki's choice of ally. Anna Paulina Luna, a conservative Florida congresswoman with no real ties to hip-hop culture, suddenly found herself tagged in a rap beef. While Luna hadn't issued a public statement yet, the idea of a sitting lawmaker being asked to step into a feud between Nicki Minaj SZA and a TDE affiliate was surreal, almost cinematic in its absurdity. As hip-hop media dissected every angle, one truth became clear. This feud had spiraled far beyond its origin. What began as a misinterpreted Mercury retrograde tweet had now mutated into a full-blown cultural flashpoint, touching on the boundaries of free speech, the weaponization of fandom, and the uncomfortable question of whether the government should ever be dragged into the world of rap beefs. And while Nicki's fans, the Barbs, continued their scorched earth campaigns online, SZA's silence became its own statement. She didn't need to respond anymore. The contrast between her grounded success and the chaos swirling around Nicki said everything that needed to be said. But if hip-hop history has taught us anything, it's that feuds rarely die quietly. With the FBI now tagged in, a Florida congresswoman's name in the headlines, and the internet dissecting every move, The question wasn't whether this saga was over. It was what and who would get pulled into the crossfire next. We also got a demonstration of grace under pressure from SZA, who showed that sometimes the best clapback isn't a tweet or a diss track, but simply thriving in your own lane. Her ability to stay focused on her artistry and fans while weathering a storm of online harassment underscored a key lesson. Longevity in this industry isn't built on Twitter wars, it's built on music, consistency, and authenticity. Nicki, on the other hand, unintentionally exposed the pitfalls of living too much in the digital echo chamber. By leaning into paranoia, involving politicians, and unleashing her fanbase like an army, she created headlines but not the kind that add to her legacy. Instead, she became a case study in how unchecked stan culture and social media toxicity can distort reality and drag even the most established icons into unnecessary chaos. In the bigger picture, this feud wasn't really about Mercury retrograde, or even about SZA. It was about unresolved industry rivalries, about the lingering shadow of the Drake-Kendrick war, and about the blurred line between personal grievances and public spectacle. What should have been handled with a private conversation became a global spectacle because social media rewards conflict, not resolution. At the end of the day, SZA's packed stadiums spoke louder than any hashtag, FBI tag, or Nicki name was trending for all the wrong reasons. HHS was being celebrated in real life by fans singing every word of her songs back to her. And that contrast may be the clearest takeaway of all. In a world addicted to drama, sometimes the most powerful move is choosing peace, success, and authenticity over chaos. But sometimes the real game is knowing when not to play at all. And in this case, SZA showed us that success, grace, and peace of mind will always speak louder than chaos. Knowing when not to play at all. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our other deep dives on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.